Well, certainly it was the slap that was heard, felt, and seen around the world. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Will Smith and Chris Rock and that whole event that unfolded at the Oscars. But I want you to know, don't think that that can't happen in your workplace. And we're going to talk about what to do if you get slapped in the face one way or another in this episode.
Welcome to the Licensed to Live show, where professionals, doctors, champions, VIPs, attorneys, and those in public office discover strategies that help you restart and gain what is lost when you find yourself accused. If another has doubted your integrity, questioned your credentials, or caused your actions to come under scrutiny, you are in the right place. On the other hand, if you have never felt the knot in the pit of your stomach when legal papers are served, the heartbreak of disappointing your family when the lock clicks shut on handcuffs, or had to appear before a board of review, then be aware, the longer you serve, the more likely you are to find yourself under the microscope of those who judge. Prepare yourself for this uncomfortable possibility. Now, here's your host, Dr. Jarrett Patton.
Welcome to this episode of Licensed to Live. My name is Dr. Jada P, and I am your host for our journey together today and every day you choose to listen to this show. If you or anyone you know has been dissed in their career, please invite them to join us along this journey. Just go to anywhere you listen to podcasts and subscribe. While you're there, rate this episode, give me honest feedback, and give me suggestions for more material that you want to hear about to keep you up to date about career and life changes. I mean, by this point, you know what I mean when I say dissed. I mean displaced, disgruntled, disenfranchised, or plain old disrespected like Chris Rock was on stage. Today, we're going to be following up this whole Oscar fiasco with Will Smith and Chris Rock, and we're going to talk about things that happen in your workplace and what you should do in the case you get slapped. And we'll get into the meat of our discussion right after we finish thanking our sponsors.
Something smells good. EH3 coffee. EH3 coffee. Premium organic. Nothing better than waking up. EH3 in your cup. Premium organic. EH3 coffee. Nothing better than in the middle of your day. EH3 coffee. Premium organic.
Hey, this is Dr. Jarrett Patton. Do you need more positivity in your life? No matter what part of your life you want to transform, positive affirmations can help you achieve your goals. But sometimes making permanent changes can be difficult. Designed with you in mind, Licensed to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will inspire and equip you to become the best version of yourself. Licensed to Live, daily affirmations to rebuild your life will set you on the path to changing your mindset, beliefs, speech, and ultimately your actions. You can change your life now by getting your copy at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, your finer book retails, or licensedtolive.com. That's licensedtolive.com.
This is Super Bowl champion Mike Logan, and you are listening to Licensed to Live.
I can't wait to tell you about this one, folks. We have Licensed to Live, the conference 2022. It is set. It is occurring July 8th, 9th, and 10th in Philadelphia, live and in person at the Bellevue Hotel. We have yet another year of great speakers. We have a VIP day that's planned that you guys won't forget. It really is life-changing, especially if you talk to any of the participants in last year's VIP day. We will be going forward with this event, rain or shine. We are ready, and we are so excited to deliver it to you. Check out all of the information see what the speaker lineup. We even have CME pending this year. Check it out. Get your tickets now at licensed2live.com. All I have to say is if I did that, boy, you would hear the end of the story. Man walks on stage, man slaps another man, police arrive at the scene, take man who slapped the man away in handcuffs, end of story. However, in case you didn't hear about this or see this, let me just give you the brief story about this. And I'll tell you how I found out about it. Now, none of my friends have ever invited me to the Oscars. I think it'd be a cool event to go see these people who have really distinguished careers, winning awards, but I've never been. So I usually don't watch a lot of it or any of it when it comes, because I think it'd just be better to see in person. However, the night of the Oscars, I was pretty much already in bed. And for some reason, I had woken up, and it was right at the time Will Smith was giving his acceptance speech. And I thought to myself, oh, wow, he finally won an Oscar. He finally won an Oscar for his role as Venus and Serena Williams' father in the film King Richard. I actually just watched that movie on my way back from LA back to Philadelphia on the plane. So I actually, a lot of times I do work while I'm sitting up there, but this time all the work was done in Los Angeles. And by the way, had a great time at Podcast Movement. Shout out to iHeartRadio, who you guys know we're on iHeartRadio. You know we're there. And they invited us off to this great event with Paris Hilton. She was the DJ. She was rocking the stage. And it really brought a lot of great podcasters together. So shout out to iHeartRadio for inviting me to that event. However, that movie was a fantastic movie. I really got into it. And believe it or not, between you and I shed some tears. And I don't shed tears often, but I shed tears over that movie because it impacted me so much as a father. And with a father and their love for their kids and what you do for your kids, no matter what comes your way, whether you're slapped in adversity. And it really took me back to my License to Live days when I was really trying to become a father when I was unemployed and unemployable. So it really brought up a whole string of emotions at 42,000 feet that I wasn't willing to even see coming. So anyway, the movie was fantastic. And I went to sleep saying he really deserved an Oscar for that, if not any of his previous works, which typically happens in the Oscars. So yes, congratulations to Will Smith for winning this. Everybody gave him a standing ovation and I fell back asleep. The next morning is when I realized what happened about 40 minutes prior to that episode of him standing up and Hollywood giving him a standing ovation. I had no idea that Will Smith was already on stage and slapped another man dead in his face, under the auspices of defending his wife. Chris Rock was making a joke about her shaved head, his wife's shaved head, and Jada Pinkett was very upset because this is a medical condition that has caused her hair loss, and it's very emotional for her. And when Chris Rock took to making G.I. Jane jokes about Jada, Will didn't take it anymore. The laughter turned to anger, and the anger quickly turned to walking on stage, slapping a man dead in the middle of his presentation of essentially an award. And that was that. So I want to break down this incident first. I mean, there's no defending Will Smith. There's no need for violence in any kind of workplace, no matter what the situation. And we know violence happens in healthcare. It happens in our legal system. It happens in many industries every single day. whether it's a physical slap or maybe an emotional slap, and we'll get to that a little bit later on in the show. However, this is something that happens every single day, and we cannot stand for the violence. So after Chris Rock gets slapped in the face, he was in shock, much as I'm sure all of the world who was seeing this happen in real time. Will Smith goes back, sits in his chair, shouts obscenities at Chris Rock for several seconds. And then, the show goes on, and Chris Rock really showed incredible restraint, because this really could have turned into a slug match, a fist fight, could have turned into so many things. But I know Chris Rock has been working on himself, his mental health, and he showed a tremendous amount of poise and grace, even after being slapped in the face. So whatever he's doing for himself to gather himself and say, okay, I'm going to end this here. Let Will walk off the stage. I'll just kind of keep the show going, talk about kind of make light of the situation about being slapped in the face by Will Smith, and then continue to go on with the show. And one of the things in Hollywood, the show must go on. I mean, I've learned that time and time again. I remember sitting in the Sirius XM studios, something went wrong, and they looked at me and said, Dr. Jarrett, the show must go on. We're doing this segment anyway. And we went on with the segment. So I know, especially on live television, live radio, you got to keep going even when crazy things happen. And that was kind of the end of it. Later, Will gets up, makes not really apologetic award speech. So it was almost like the violent incident was separated by the accolades of the award, and everybody in Hollywood stood up for him, which then brought people to think about, well, is Hollywood spineless? Are they condoning violence? Will they stand for anything? And all of these things, so on and so on and so on and so on. And you can look to all the Hollywood critics and all those people that talk about this stuff to really get the play-by-play analysis of all of this. But I am simply trying to set the stage for what happened, just in case you didn't see it, and what happened. What would have happened with me would have been a very short story. It would have been like the crazy fan that runs on the field naked. You hear about it briefly, they get arrested, taken out of there, and then you never hear about it again. But this happened on such a big stage with such big celebrities, it'll be talked about for a while, I'm sure. It may even still be talked about when you listen to this episode. But the main reason we're talking about this today is so that you can understand what happens if you get slapped in the face at work. And I'm going to tell you about that right after another message from our sponsor.
The time is now to refresh your career. We help doctors, lawyers, executives, and VIPs refresh and restart. Dr. Jarrett's coaching helps you build confidence, gain more credibility, develop more leadership skills, and gain clarity in your career path. Want to climb the executive ladder or branch out on your own? We'll put your career in overdrive. Visit drjarrett.com and sign up for your free strategy session.
Okay, we're back. Now, what do you do if you are slapped in the face at the job? Now, all right, we'll spend a brief amount if you're physically assaulted on the job. We know gun violence, physical violence does happen in the workplace. It does happen in healthcare quite frequently. Just like it happens in the airline industry, people are getting more and more violent in the skies as well. So there are some things that you need to do in those cases. So, of course, you're following company and procedures. You must defend yourself if at all possible. You need to get yourself out of that situation as quickly as possible, and then call administrators, police, et cetera, and take it down the way, because workplace violence simply can't be tolerated. And so far, and maybe the Oscars will come out and make a subsequent statement, but look like the award academy is okay with violence simply because they're shocked and they never thought something like that would happen and they didn't have a plan for it. So most workplaces do have a plan for physical violence. And so you can follow those policies and procedures. That's not that big of a deal. But if it does happen to you, it's certainly something to stand down. Now, there are some circumstances where there may be some aggression or physical violence, that things that may even happen in patient care areas. You know, the stereotypical one is the operating room, and things go bad in the operating room. Well, you very likely may have a patient that's out under anesthesia, and you may have to actually tend to the patient's needs and take care of some of those things, as well as worry about your physical safety. So it can get super complicated in there. But I think I want to really give a few words today on what should you do if you get slapped in the face, maybe more in a metaphorical sense. Because let's face it, these types of things happen all the time in people's workplaces, and they can also be extremely subtle. If we're talking about microaggressions, which are small, subtle statements that are attacking a person's identity, whether it is their sexual identity or affiliation, whether it's their race, whether it's their ethnic heritage, their language, little tiny jabs that are almost like paper cuts. They're things that hurt day in and day out. And after having them time and time and time again, they can lead to more trauma and more issues in your own life. So this is a type of slap in the face, a more subtle slap in the face that takes a little bit more time to weed out, because you're often alienated in these situations. It may be, your claim may be against someone who is in a position of power over you. So then it brings these influential things in there, but you still must stand up for your rights, and the workplace can't be tolerated. And there are many policies involved for people who are bullied at work, or maybe even go under these microaggressions. There may be ombudsmen that you can bring in, supervisors, maybe even a hearing panel, depending on how long this has been going on. Not to mention, if you just go ahead and ultimately file a lawsuit, if you just feel like you can't work in that environment anymore. So you have courses of action, but part of it is to raise your own awareness of this instance and this episode. You may not initially feel that you were being assaulted in some sort of way, because you're like, did they mean that? They kind of said that in an offhanded way, and it was a problem. But it's also something that, we have to look for in other ways, because sometimes people don't even believe you in these circumstances, because they can be kind of mild-mannered. And particularly when there's a power imbalance or a perceived sexual identity difference or something like that, it can be a major issue for you. And in that case, you may even need to go down the EEOC route, file employment complaints, and get it there. There are other types of assaults that happen that are verbal in nature. They're quite intentional, and they're not as subtle as microaggressions. They're pretty much out and out ways that people are verbally assaulted. And this is something that is pretty easily identifiable right up front. It usually causes some sort of visceral reaction in you, and you don't feel very good after something like that happens to you. So if you get slapped in the face in this type of way, again, it goes back to company policy and company leadership, because the way things are handled at the top and the messages that are sent from the top go all the way back through to the front lines. And if you are in a situation where administrators, supervisors are not listening to your complaints, you need to kick it up a notch and see that you are heard in another way. Hopefully, you work in a place where there are policies and procedures and people take these types of complaints seriously and go through the actual procedures regardless of who the person is, if they're a person of power or not. And then you're usually in pretty good hands, even though you don't feel good. The assault doesn't feel any better, but you at least feel like you have some backing. In some other cases, things may be swept under the rug and or minimized or not even addressed. And particularly when this happens again and again and again and again, people get hurt, people get left out, and then the culture becomes toxic. So it remains to be seen what the people at the Academy Awards are going to do, because they need to make a statement from a leadership perspective and say that violence is not going to be tolerated. Otherwise, this type of stuff will happen all the time. People say, well, hey, you know what? Because I'm a superstar, I'm a big celebrity, I can go up and slap somebody else in the face. No big deal. It may make people think about verbally slapping someone in the face, whether you're a comedian or not, for that matter. But things will need to be straightened out in this Academy Awards. Things may need to be straightened out in your institution, but it's really up to you to stand up for you, or maybe you even need to stand up for a colleague this has happened to, because sometimes it can be very uncomfortable to stand up for a friend or a colleague. You have nothing to do with the situation, but you see that somebody is being wrong, and you have to stick your neck out to help that person. It's okay, be brave. At the end of the day, you're going to feel better for trying to do the right thing than you may feel if something happens to you or you get caught up in this mix. And quite frankly, maybe you don't even want to work at that place anyway, if that is the type of behavior that gets condoned. The bottom line is, I want you guys to stand up for your rights in any workplace. We can't stand for any workplace violence. And in places that may cover up, they're not quite as advanced, they're not quite ready to get all of this information and make a change or make a solid statement or policy change that induces real behavioral change. Well, maybe that's the time you need to look for a place for a better fit. And maybe you just need a better fit in your life. And you know I'm always available to chat. Simply go to timewithdrjarrett.com, make an appointment for a free strategy session, and we will see you next time.
No matter how disheartening the moment of accusation sounds, how deep the pain of immobilization stabs, or how bleak your future looks, no one can take away your license to live. Keep Dr. Jarrett's expertise handy and unlock your future. Go to Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, or another podcast player and subscribe right now to Licensed to Live. See you next time.